Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. At 2:13 a.m., deep in the Nevada hills, a knock shattered the silence. Three strangers with fake authority, forged signature, and a plan to steal one man's land. But they picked the wrong veteran to push. This wasn't just trespass, it was the start of a war. I woke up to the kind of pounding on the door that makes your heart slam into your ribs before your brain even catches up. I checked the clock. A little glowing 2:13 in the damn morning, and for a moment I thought maybe I was dreaming. But then came another round of hammering, like someone was trying to break through the door with their fists alone. And out here, in the middle of a Nevada hillside where the closest neighbor is a coyote, that sort of thing gets taken seriously. I grabbed my flashlight with one hand and rested my other hand on the holster clipped to my pajama waistband. Veteran reflex. Even after years out of the service, that kind of muscle memory doesn't fade. The house was quiet except for the hum of my off-grid systems. The generator, the inverter that fed the battery bank, the wind whipping at the side of the building like it wanted inside. January winds up here can peel your skin off if they feel like it. When I swung the door open just enough to see, three figures stood on my front porch in chunky winter jackets with patches that read, Sierra Pines Estates HOA, Homeowners Association. Out here, at 2:13 in the morning, the woman in front, flashlight under her chin like we were telling ghost stories, shoved a plastic-sleeved packet toward me. Notice of violation and mandatory vacation, she said, as if that was a perfectly normal greeting. Who the hell are you? I asked. And what the hell does that mean? We are authorized representatives of Sierra Pines Estates Homeowners Association, she recited like a script. Your structure is in violation of multiple community standards. You have 48 hours to vacate until proper approvals are processed. I blinked at her, trying not to laugh in her face. Lady, this is private land. My land. I'm not part of any HOA. She gave me the kind of look people reserve for dogs who don't know they're not allowed on the couch. That's not correct. As of last fall, your parcel falls under our jurisdiction. You failed to submit requests for exterior fixtures, including this, she waved vaguely at my roof, inappropriate color scheme, and the generator noise violates quiet hours. The funny part, my generator emits less noise than a fridge. The panels and insulation work result in the house being quieter than snow, but none of that mattered because this woman had decided she owned the damn hillside. Her buddy stepped forward, flashing a piece of paper that looked like it had been printed at a high school library, and then slept on. We also have a court order here. Show me, I said. He pressed it closer to his chest. You'll see it when appropriate. I almost snorted. Yeah, that's how court orders work. You'll see it when appropriate. The third guy was shining his flashlight straight into my face, as if that was going to intimidate me. It mostly just pissed me off. I exhaled slowly. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. You three are going to step away from my property line right now, and I'm going to call the sheriff. Because this, I poked the packet she still waved, is trespassing and harassment. And if you wake me up again before sunrise, I'm going to add disturbing the peace to the list. The woman's voice turned icy. If you resist, we will have to note your non-cooperation, and failure to comply can result in removal by force. Well, that was about the dumbest thing she could have said while I was wearing a firearm. I swung the door fully open, letting the porch light reveal the holster clearly. You want to try removing me by force? We'll see how that works out. Suddenly, Mr. Flashlight in the eyes decided his boots were real interesting to look at. I called dispatch while they watched, probably expecting bullets or a nervous breakdown. 10 minutes later, bless small-town response times, two sheriff's deputies pulled up. The HOA decided to grow a conscience when badges arrived. The deputies looked through the documents, if you can call clip art letterheads documents, and one of the officers raised his eyebrows so high it looked like they were trying to escape his face. The court order was a half-filled form with a scribble where a judge's signature should be. No seal, no case number, no legal anything. So much for authority. The deputies wrote up a report for unlawful entry. They gave the HOA trio a lecture about real laws, which was the most satisfying part of the whole nightmare. The woman sputtered about misunderstandings and internal resolutions, but eventually all three trudged back down my driveway like raccoons chased off the trash cans. I shut the door, adrenaline still buzzing like electricity under my skin. That was not something you shake off and go right back to sleep from. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching the snow hit the windows sideways, wondering what the hell just happened and what exactly they were trying to pull. 48 hours to vacate my own home for a roof color in a place where they had no damn right to be. Whatever this was, it wasn't a simple mistake, and they'd just declared war on the wrong homeowner. The morning after that little horror show on my porch, I started making calls before the sun even cleared the ridge. First was my attorney, Jason Roth, smart, ex-military like me, and blessed with the patience of a monk and the aggression of a rabid pit bull when provoked. I told him what happened. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he finally muttered, "That's not just illegal, that's organized." By 8:30, I'd reviewed every document I had on the property, the original title, the closing deed, the parcel map, and every county and state record I'd archived. I'd paid cash for this land. No mortgage, no encumbrances, and, most importantly, no HOA. That was the reason I bought it in the first place. I wanted sovereignty, not a neighborhood cult obsessed with paint colors and mailbox heights. But while Jason was digging into the legal side, I got a text from him. "Call the county registrar's office. Something's changed." That sentence hit me like a brick. I called immediately and got routed through to a woman named Brenda. She was polite enough, but when I asked whether my parcel had been recently added to any HOA zoning changes, she hesitated. "That information is in the system, yes," she said slowly. "What the hell does that mean?" I asked, already feeling the hairs on my neck stand up. "There was a recorded amendment," she said, adding several outlying parcels, including yours, to the Sierra Pines Estates jurisdiction. It was logged mid-December. "That's impossible," I snapped. "I never agreed to that. No vote, no paperwork, nothing." "There is a consent form attached to the amendment file," she replied. "It includes your signature." I stared at the phone in silence for a few seconds. "I want a copy today. Email and physical." "Of course, sir." An hour later, the document hit my inbox, a scanned request for voluntary inclusion in Sierra Pines Estates HOA, dated 3 months prior, with my name, address, parcel number, and a half-assed signature that was supposed to be mine. I'd never seen that form in my life. The signature looked close enough to fool someone who didn't know better, but it wasn't mine. A soldier learns his own pen strokes like his weapon serial number, and this one was all wrong. I called Jason. "It's forged," I told him. "I thought so. It's sloppy. No notary. No cross-reference with your ID. They filed it directly through the registrar's office without verification. So someone inside helped. That's my guess. We're going to need to escalate." By noon, I drove down to the Carson County Recorder's office myself. The building was a squat 2-story cube of bad lighting and stale coffee smells. I marched into the records department and asked to speak with whoever handled the HOA filings. A man named Trevor Miles came out, younger than I expected, with a nervous energy and khaki pants that screamed mid-level civil servant. "Can I help you?" he asked with a tight smile. "You filed an amendment last December adding Parcel 19B to Sierra Pines Estates HOA," I said, handing him the printed copy of the form with the forged signature. "That's my land. That's my name. That's not my damn signature." His eyes flicked down to the page, and for a moment, something passed over his face. A little flinch, just a twitch. Most people wouldn't catch it, but I've debriefed enough liars to know what guilt looks like. "I'd have to review the file," he said carefully. "We process a lot of requests." "Not without validation, you don't," I shot back. "At least, not legally." He motioned toward the back. "Let me check." He disappeared for 10 minutes. When he came back, he held a paper copy of the same form. "It appears to be complete. Your signature, your parcel number, dated November 4th. No irregularities on file." "No notary stamp," I said, pointing. "No ID attached. And I didn't sign this. I want an investigation opened immediately." "That's above my department," he replied. "You'll have to file a request with the county clerk." "Which I'm doing. Right now." I filed a formal fraud complaint at the counter, handed over both the digital and print forms, and requested a full review of every amendment filed by Sierra Pines Estates over the past 3 years. Jason called me that evening. "This isn't just about you," he said. "I've already found 2 more parcels that were added in the same amendment. One of them has a homeowner who says he never signed a thing either." "So they're running a goddamn forgery operation?" "Looks like it." That night, I pulled up a map and highlighted my property in red. Then I highlighted the others added in that same amendment, 5 in total, all on the edge of the HOA's existing zone, all isolated, all valuable, all apparently targeted. Someone was trying to grow their little empire illegally, and they thought I wouldn't notice. The next morning, I woke up to a thick, low-hanging fog that blanketed the ridge like someone had erased the horizon. I hadn't slept much. The forged document, the fake HOA jurisdiction, the too casual registrar, all of it rattled around in my head like loose change in a dryer. I was pissed, but underneath that was something colder, calculated. The feeling I used to get before an ambush op. I wasn't just under attack, someone thought I'd fold under pressure. Then came the note. Folded paper left in my mailbox even though I hadn't had actual mail service out here in over a year. Just a short sentence, scrawled in uneven ballpoint pen. I know you're not crazy. Meet at the lower trailhead by the creek. Sunset. Come alone. No signature. No number. Just that. Now, this wasn't the kind of place where anonymous notes ended with birthday cake and handshakes, but my gut told me this wasn't a threat. This was someone reaching out. I brought my sidearm anyway. The lower trailhead was about a 20-minute walk through pine scrub and old ATV tracks. The sun was just starting to kiss the snowcaps when I saw someone standing by the split-rail fence near the creek, hands in his jacket pockets, head down. I recognized him before I even got close. Elijah L.J. Carter lived 2 lots over, or over the ridge and through the trees, in mountain terms. Quiet guy, retired young, built his own house like I did. We talked once or twice about solar battery inverters and the curse of raccoons, but that was it. He looked up, gave me a grim nod. I figured it'd be you. I said, "That your note?" He didn't answer right away. Just pulled something from his coat pocket and handed it to me. A USB flash drive in a plastic bag. "I used to be on the board," he said finally. "Sierra Pines HOA. That stopped me cold. They brought me on 5 years ago when I moved in." He continued, "I thought it was just to keep things tidy, enforce fence heights, dogs on leashes, that kind of crap. But it got dark real fast." I turned the flash drive over in my fingers. "What's on this?" Meeting minutes, emails, internal memos, a full folder of signed voluntary agreements from people who never agreed to jack shit. They used to be paper, but 2 years ago, they switched to QR codes and app-based voting. I frowned. "QR codes?" He nodded. "They said it was to make voting more efficient. Said every homeowner would get a unique code in the mail. But those codes weren't linked to IDs, just parcel numbers. Karen, you've met Karen by now, I assume, figured out she could scan unclaimed ones herself. Hell, they printed extra, voted from empty lots, from people who'd moved away. All in favor of expanding the HOA. I didn't know whether to laugh or vomit. She called it quiet consent, LJ said. Said if no one objected, it counted as approval. It's all on there. "And why come to me now?" He glanced back toward the trees. "Because you're the first one who didn't just take it. They tried this with my land, too. Said I owed back dues. I paid them off and shut up. My wife was pregnant at the time, didn't want the stress." "Where's your wife now?" He paused. "Left last fall, took the baby. Said she couldn't live with the paranoia." I let the silence hang. There wasn't much to say to that. "So what do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "But if you take this to the authorities, you need to know. The registrar, Trevor Miles, he's in on it. Gets kickbacks every time a new parcel gets added. Karen's been expanding her little kingdom one forged vote at a time." I exhaled hard. "Jesus Christ. It's not just you," he added. "It's 5, maybe 10 parcels already. Isolated ones. No neighbors to help. Easy targets." I looked at the drive again. "You sure this is solid?" "Absolutely. I used to be the one uploading it all. I know where the bodies are buried." He turned to walk back toward the trail. "I'll deny everything if they come asking, but if you burn them down, burn them good." That night, I plugged the drive into my laptop. The folder tree looked like a digital autopsy, dozens of PDFs, scanned forms with mismatched signatures, vote tallies showing 95% participation in a community where half the lots were uninhabited, even an internal memo from Karen dated just a month ago. Goal: absorb parcels before spring. Push QR kits by December. Miles will backdate if needed. My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't HOA overreach. This was organized fraud. And they had just handed me the bullet with their name on it. By sunrise the next day, I was no longer just a pissed-off homeowner with a camera and a clean title. I was sitting on a goddamn conspiracy. I spent the morning combing through every file on LJ's drive. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became. Sierra Pines Estates HOA wasn't just creeping its boundaries like some overgrown weed. They were forging consent on a digital level. Votes cast by ghosts. Fake support generated by QR codes that should have belonged to real people, and sometimes did, until Karen and her cronies voted on their behalf without them knowing. The files included spreadsheets with parcel IDs, QR codes, date-stamped entries from an HOA voting platform called Civic Pro Plus. Looked official as hell, but I checked the domain registration. It wasn't run by any neutral tech vendor. It was owned by Capesius M Solutions LLC. And K just so happened to be Karen Woolbridge, queen of the HOA herself. She had literally set up a fake voting app and made herself the administrator. Jesus. Jason, my attorney, could hardly believe it when I showed him. "This is felony-level fraud," he said over the phone. "You realize what this is, right? It's a digital paper trail of systemic voting manipulation. If this app crossed into other counties, it could be a multi-jurisdictional case." That clicked something in my brain. "Wait," I said, "can you check whether this HOA ever claimed jurisdiction over lots in Washoe County?" "Give me 20 minutes," he said. I already knew the answer before he called back. "They filed boundary updates in 2 neighboring counties," he told me. Same app, same pattern, same QR system. Now it was a whole new ballgame. We put together a report. The QR scam, the fake signatures, the forged voluntary inclusion forms. I included screenshots of the app dashboard, vote tallies from supposedly uninhabited parcels, and Karen's cheery little internal email about quiet expansion. By the afternoon, Jason submitted the evidence packet to the Carson County District Attorney and CC'd Nevada's Attorney General. But we didn't stop there. We also flagged it to a local news outlet that had previously covered HOA overreach. They didn't bite right away, but the seed was planted. That night, I couldn't sit still. So I drove into town and sat in on a county planning commission meeting. Public, sleepy, and exactly the kind of place where people think nothing important ever happens. I waited until the last 10 minutes during public comment. When I stood up and introduced myself, a few folks recognized the name, probably from gossip about the guy who almost got evicted by the HOA. I didn't mince words. "In the past 3 months," I said, "multiple parcels of private land have been fraudulently brought under the authority of an HOA using falsified documents and a digital voting system not tied to any verified identity. I have proof, and I've submitted it to the DA and the Attorney General." That got attention. I explained how the HOA claimed voluntary votes through QR codes they mailed out, unlinked to homeowners, and then voted on their own behalf when people didn't respond. I even passed out printouts of a few fake approval forms. Same handwriting, same date stamps, obviously copied and pasted. One of the commissioners asked, "You're saying this happened here?" "Right here," I said. "My parcel." And possibly dozens of others. This is not a zoning mistake. This is targeted fraud. Murmurs erupted across the room. A few residents stood up to say they'd also received strange letters from Sierra Pines in recent months, even though they weren't part of the development. One woman said she was told she owed dues for her vacant lot. After the meeting, 3 people approached me with their own documents, asking if I could look them over. I wasn't trying to be a hero, but I had the evidence. And now people were paying attention. Back at home, I checked the HOA website. As of that evening, they'd posted a new community update claiming all recent votes had been verified through secure and legal means, and accusing external parties of spreading misinformation. The last line made me laugh out loud. "All documents have been reviewed by our legal counsel and registrar's office." Oh, Trevor, still playing along. They knew I was coming. Good. Let the bastards brace for impact. The call from the Department of Justice came 2 days later. I was sipping bitter coffee from a chipped mug and reviewing yet another resident's questionable HOA approval letter when my phone lit up with an unfamiliar DC area code. I figured it was spam, maybe someone trying to sell me a timeshare in Boca, but I answered anyway. "Mr. Brandon," the voice said, "this is Agent Rebecca Linwood, Department of Justice Special Investigations Unit. You were listed as the primary complainant in an ongoing HOA jurisdictional fraud case." I nearly dropped the mug. She explained, calm, clear, no fluff. that the QR scheme I'd uncovered had triggered a federal red flag when multiple counties in Nevada submitted overlapping fraud reports involving the same HOA system, the same app, and the same registrar name, Trevor Miles. Apparently, Jason had copied the right people when he sent our evidence packet. "You need to know," Agent Linwood said, "this isn't isolated. We've tracked similar digital expansion attempts to homeowner associations in Utah, Arizona, and parts of Colorado. Different names, same tech, same digital voting model. And Sierra Pines is one of the earliest adopters. So this isn't just local corruption," I said. "This is coordinated." "Exactly. We're classifying it as a multi-jurisdictional conspiracy to commit property fraud under color of governance." That was a mouthful, but I liked the sound of it. An hour later, 2 black SUVs rolled up my gravel road, crunching over frost-bitten dirt. The federal agents looked like you'd expect. Plain clothes, serious faces, no small talk. They set up in my dining room, asked for my permission to image the flash drive LJ had given me, and began interviewing me like it was a deposition. I told them everything: the midnight eviction stunt, the forged signature, the fake voting system, and the cowardly registrar hiding behind county walls. When I handed them printed screenshots of Civic Pro Plus's back end and the app's fake ballot results, they looked impressed. Apparently, not many homeowners submit full forensic breakdowns with timestamps. Agent Linwood took a look at Karen's memo where she openly suggested backdating votes. "She really wrote this down?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "She thought she was untouchable," I said. She nodded. "They usually do." Later that evening, I got a text from LJ. "They came to my house. Feds. I talked. Everything. Guess it's out now." I responded, "You did the right thing. You're not alone anymore." The next morning, word hit the local paper. Federal investigation launched into HOA fraud across 3 Nevada counties. Karen's face was nowhere to be seen in the article, but her fingerprints were all over the story. The headline alone was enough to light up every HOA Facebook group in the state. Then came the big one. 3 days later, just before lunch, Sierra Pines rolled up to my property again, this time in daylight. 2 flatbed trucks, a trailer, and 1 oversized pickup with the HOA's seal crudely magnetized to the door. A team of men in orange vests started unloading tools, and one of them walked toward my carport with a bolt cutter. I watched the guy raise it toward the lock I'd installed after the last stunt. I didn't say a word. I just turned and hit the live feed button on my home surveillance app. Then I called the sheriff. Again. I stepped outside, calmly, like I was going to check the mail. "Gentlemen," I said, "is there a reason you're attempting to dismantle my property?" One of them looked up from the lock. "We were given authorization by HOA enforcement to remove non-compliant structures." I raised an eyebrow. "Non-compliant with what?" He blinked. "With neighborhood standards." I smiled. "And what jurisdiction are you under?" He hesitated. That's when the patrol car pulled up. Same deputy as before. Good guy. Took one look at the bolt cutter mid-swing and didn't even ask questions. He arrested 2 of them on the spot. The others scattered like ants. The entire thing, from truck arrival to cuffs clicking, was caught on my exterior cams and uploaded to my cloud. Within 2 hours, the footage was viral in 3 community Facebook groups and had already hit local Reddit. It didn't take long for commenters to start connecting the dots. The fake votes, the midnight threats, and now blatant daylight property destruction. Even better? That same evening, LJ reached out with a bombshell. "Found something else," he said. They were sending out QR kits under the names of dead owners. I checked obituaries against voting records. Karen scanned ballots from people 6 feet under. I added it to the evidence file. By the end of the week, FBI agents executed search warrants at both the Sierra Pines HOA office and Trevor Miles' desk at the county registrar's office. They hauled out boxes, literal boxes, of files, hard drives, backup tapes, and one idiot staffer who tried to sneak out the back with a laptop in his hoodie. Trevor was taken in for questioning. Karen wasn't far behind. The system they built to fake legitimacy was finally being picked apart, and I wasn't just some stubborn ex-engineer with a gun and a generator anymore. Now I had the federal government at my back. They called me to testify on a Thursday morning. Federal court in Reno was colder than I expected. Not just the air conditioning, but the mood. The kind of silence that settles over a place when people realize everything fake is about to be ripped apart under oath. Karen Woolbridge sat at the defendant's table in a navy suit that probably cost more than my truck. Her hair, usually that Stepford polished blonde, looked flat, like the mask had finally peeled back a bit. Beside her, Trevor Miles looked like a man whose stomach had been replaced by a bag of wet marbles. No eye contact, no fight left. I sat down at the witness stand, raised my right hand, and swore to tell the truth. I didn't need reminding. I'd been living the truth for weeks now. Months, really. Mr. Brandon, the prosecutor, began. Can you walk us through the events of January 3rd? So I did. I told them everything. The 2:13 a.m. Knock, the fake eviction notice, the so-called court order waved in my face like some HOA version of martial law. I described the threats, the forged signature that magically enrolled my property into an HOA I'd never consented to, and the absolute circus that followed. The jury sat forward, leaning into the story like it was the only real thing happening in the room. They flinched at the idea of being kicked out of their homes in the dead of winter. I made sure they knew this wasn't about dues or paint colors. This was about power, stolen behind our backs, wrapped in legal jargon and bureaucratic fog. Then the prosecutor brought up the QR system. I walked them through the emails LJ had uncovered. I explained how Civic Pro Plus worked, or rather, how it didn't. How the QR codes were distributed under the pretense of secure voting, but were actually assigned to parcel numbers, not people. How Karen and her board scanned them themselves, racking up votes like it was a game. And these QR codes, the prosecutor asked, did they require any form of identification verification? None, I said. No ID, no login, not even a name, just a scan and a checkbox. We showed the jury screenshots of ballots approved by long vacant lots, then ones linked to deceased homeowners, some of them gone for years. Did you find any evidence of direct manipulation? I nodded and held up a printed copy of Karen's memo, the one where she'd outlined parcel expansion goals and casually noted that Trevor would backdate the filings if necessary. The defense tried to object, but the judge overruled. The memo was entered into evidence. You could feel the heat in the room shift like someone turned on a blowtorch under the defense table. Then came the part I didn't expect. LJ testified. He took the stand in a dark gray jacket and jeans. No suit. Just a regular man, finally done hiding. His voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of years. I was on the HOA board, he said. I saw what we were doing. I helped file expansion forms, push QR kits, stage vote tallies. At first, I thought it was routine. Then I realized we were steamrolling property rights. Why didn't you come forward earlier? The prosecutor asked. My wife was pregnant, he said quietly. Karen made it clear that people who spoke up lost more than money. I didn't want to test what she meant by that. His voice cracked on the last word, but he straightened his shoulders and looked Karen dead in the eyes. She doesn't scare me anymore. The courtroom was still. For a few seconds, no one even breathed. After that, the dominoes fell fast. A forensic tech from the FBI testified that Civic Pro Plus ballots had been cast from a single IP address located inside the HOA's main office. Hundreds of votes, multiple counties, all in favor of HOA expansion. Then the county clerk's office dropped the hammer. Trevor Miles had submitted over a dozen retroactive filings without witness signatures, notary stamps, or ID verification, all processed through his personal login credentials, most of them filed. Late at night, Karen's defense tried to play the victim card, claimed it was all bad record-keeping, and that she trusted her staff, that she was trying to modernize outdated HOA systems. The prosecution didn't even flinch. They projected a slide onto the courtroom screen, one of Karen's emails to Trevor. Let me know when 19B is locked in. If he fights, we hit him with the full noise ordinance angle. They always fold when we act like it's already decided. Do you recognize this email? The prosecutor asked her. Karen refused to answer. The judge ordered her to respond. She finally muttered, yes. In that moment, her entire face fell like a condemned building. All that smugness, that HOA queen energy, gone. Just a woman caught in her own paper trail. The last straw came when a whistleblower from the registrar's office testified that Trevor had offered him a piece of every expansion if he kept quiet. Said the phrase he used was, don't think of it as fraud. Think of it as community consolidation. Hell of a euphemism. The jury was out for less than 3 hours. When they came back, the verdicts were unanimous. Karen Woolbridge, guilty on all counts. Trevor Miles, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of legal documents, unauthorized use of digital systems for governance manipulation, attempted property seizure by fraudulent means. I sat in the back row and exhaled like I hadn't taken a full breath in weeks. The court ordered Karen to pay restitution to every homeowner affected, nearly a dozen cases by then. Trevor lost his position, pension, and freedom in the same ruling. They were both remanded into custody immediately. No bail, no goodbyes. The judge closed the session with a rare statement. This court does not tolerate the weaponization of bureaucracy. Property rights are not a suggestion. They are a foundation. Amen to that. The day after the verdict, Sierra Pines Estates was a ghost town. Not the houses, but the people who ran the show. The HOA office was shuttered, its blinds drawn like it was mourning the loss of a dictator. No more smug newsletters, no more unmarked envelopes slipped into mailboxes threatening citations for non-standard roofing angles or incompatible mailbox fonts. And yet, the damage they'd done still lingered like a bad smell. Dozens of homeowners were left with bogus dues claims, fraudulent liens filed against their properties, and lingering paranoia. Some of them had moved away entirely, quietly selling their homes at a loss just to get clear of the suffocating grip Karen had imposed through fear, form letters, and false authority. But justice, it turned out, wasn't done yet. A week after the sentencing, the Department of Justice filed for the court-ordered dissolution of the Sierra Pines Estates Homeowners Association as a non-compliant entity operating under fraudulent practices. In plain English, they were shutting it down for good. The court appointed a federal receiver to begin unwinding the organization's assets. Office equipment, company vehicles, HOA-owned maintenance tools. All of it was seized, cataloged, and prepped for auction. But what got real attention were the financials. Turns out, Karen had been using HOA dues to pad personal expenses, spa treatments, luxury retreats labeled as board development, even a damn ski trip in Vail charged as a community outreach conference. Over $180,000 in misused funds. Every dollar was being tracked. I was called back to the courthouse one last time, not as a witness, but as a victim entitled to compensation. The DOJ had ruled that my home had been subject to an attempted fraudulent seizure, that I'd experienced financial and psychological harm, and that my time, legal costs, and public exposure warranted restitution. The number they offered me? $420,000. Jason and I looked at each other in disbelief. It wasn't just vindication, it was acknowledgement that I hadn't been paranoid, aggressive, or overreacting. I'd been right, every damn step of the way. I signed the paperwork that same day. And then I went home. LJ came by that night, brought beer and silence, which was exactly what I needed. We sat out back near my fire pit, watching the stars punch through the cold sky one by one. He looked better, lighter somehow. The man had lost nearly everything holding back the truth, and now, with the monsters caged, he could finally breathe. You know, he said, popping the cap off his bottle, I thought we were going to get steamrolled. I figured no one cared enough to stop them. I shrugged. They picked the wrong ridge. A few days later, I started getting letters. This time, the good kind. People I didn't even know from across the state wrote to thank me. One guy said he'd backed down from fighting his HOA 3 years ago and lost everything. Another woman sent me a picture of her old house with a note, "If only I'd fought like you did." Then came the media. First, it was a local podcast, Nevada Watchdogs. Then a segment on a national morning show. Jason handled the interviews. I handled not throwing up from the attention. At some point, someone started calling me the guy who brought down an HOA with a flash drive. Not accurate, but catchy. I declined a book deal twice. I wasn't interested in becoming a brand. What I did want, though, was to leave a mark. Not for glory, but for defense. So I took some of that restitution money and had a local metalworker create a custom gate sign for the edge of my property. It was big, brushed steel, and bolted into concrete. It read, "Private property, not subject to HOA jurisdiction, trespassing enforced under Nevada Code 207. See court order for details." And just below it, I mounted a framed laminated copy of the federal court judgment, in full, every page. Some people put up gnomes. I put up proof. Then, one final surprise. I got a call from the county commissioner's office. Turns out they'd been reviewing HOA oversight rules across the region, and my case had lit a fire under their asses. They were drafting new legislation requiring all homeowner associations to undergo third-party audits every 2 years and to register their digital voting systems with the Secretary of State's office, and they wanted me to sit on the advisory board. I laughed at first, said I wasn't a suit, but the commissioner told me I didn't need to be. They needed someone who'd smelled the bullshit firsthand, someone who could spot fake authority from 100 yards away. I told them I'd think about it. I still haven't decided. I came out here to get away from people, not represent them. But I gotta admit, it feels damn good to know that what I did mattered beyond my fence line. For now, I've got my peace, my land, my solitude, and a camera on every post, just in case. The first snow of February came in quiet, dry sheets, the kind that whispers rather than falls, dusting the trees with a thin white veil. I sat on my porch with a mug of black coffee and watched it settle into the ridge. Peace had a different texture now. Heavier, earned. It had been nearly 2 months since the trial. Sierra Pines Estates was officially dissolved. The name, the charter, the tax ID, all gone. The signs at the old office had been taken down, the building gutted, and now for lease. Every time I drove by, I smiled. Karen Woolbridge was sitting in federal prison awaiting final sentencing, 12 years without parole. Last I heard, Trevor Miles had already been transferred to a low-security facility for government employees convicted of white-collar crimes. He'd taken a plea deal, confessed to falsifying records, and agreed to testify in other HOA-related cases popping up across the Southwest. Yep, turned out our little skirmish up here on the mountain had kicked open a door. After our trial went public, 3 more HOA fraud investigations launched across Nevada, 2 in Arizona, 1 in southern Utah. Civic Pro Plus was officially blacklisted by state governments, and new legislation was in the works requiring all HOA votes to be certified with government ID verification or live quorum sessions. Jason called it a reckoning. I called it damn well overdue. I'd thought everything was over after the auction. The federal receiver had sold off Sierra Pines equipment, vehicles, and Karen's remaining assets to help pay restitution. I got a letter informing me I'd receive a final payment. A small sum from the sale of their snowplow, of all things. But the real end came quietly. One morning, I got a knock at my door. I tensed instinctively, but it wasn't a flashlight mob this time. Just a man, early 30s, beard, good posture, hands visible. He introduced himself as Eric Sandoval, a property owner from down the valley. I just wanted to say thank you, he said. I bought my place 2 years ago. Didn't realize until last month that it had been absorbed by Sierra Pines the same way they tried to do to you. I saw your story, your video, that sign at your gate. You gave me the guts to file my own complaint. I shook his hand and invited him in. We talked for 2 hours about off-grid living, about what community really means, and what it absolutely doesn't. He wasn't the first to show up like that. Over the past few weeks, more and more people had stopped by, sent letters, or messaged me online. One guy offered to make a short documentary. A local high school student asked if she could interview me for her civics paper. I agreed, but warned her I wasn't the best role model. She laughed and said, "You stood up for what's right. That counts." I don't usually get sentimental, but that one stuck with me. One evening, I drove down to what used to be the central signboard for Sierra Pines, the big fake stone slab that used to boast a private community, order, beauty, belonging. Somebody had defaced it with red spray paint. Just 3 words, all caps. Not anymore, Karen. I couldn't help but laugh. A month later, I was invited to speak at a community town hall, the same commission that once rubber-stamped Karen's boundary expansions. Now, they wanted guidance on how to protect property owners from future abuse. I kept it simple. I told them the problem wasn't just corrupt people, it was systems with too much power and too little oversight. I told them people don't need to be controlled, they need to be heard. And I reminded them that no organization, no board, and no seal on a letterhead is above the Constitution. When I finished, they clapped. A few folks even stood. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just nodded and walked off. That night, I came home and stood at the edge of my property. The wind was high. The trees shifted like they were applauding, too. And just beyond the gate, there stood that metal sign. Solid, cold, and permanent. Private property. No HOA. Court order framed and gleaming in the porch light. I wasn't just a guy with a solar array and a bunker-grade front door anymore. I was a symbol. The story even made it into a documentary podcast. They called the episode The Hill They Couldn't Take. I like that. Life moved on. The generator hummed. The water tanks filled. The snow fell in slow silence, like the mountain was letting out a long breath. And I finally did too.